think I just hit this. Okay, there, now we're recording. Yeah, anyways, we're just gonna wait a couple more minutes for people to come on in, but actually let me start. Actually, just share your screen first. I'm gonna do some setup. I'm just gonna be using Replit for this specific tutorial, but I mean, you could honestly use anything, to be honest.
Okay. 1
Yeah,
second.
within reason, obviously.
Remember doing HTML with Notepad in Windows?
Oh,
Oh
no.
God.
Yeah, back in 7th grade.
I
I
used
didn't know.
one online thing that got bought by Amazon. This was like maybe like 3 years ago. No, it was more like 4 years ago, 3, 4 years ago. And then I used Replit. I can't remember what I used after that. I kind of stopped doing web dev for a bit, but kind of picked it back up again.
Yeah, they taught me HTML in 8th grade, but like I didn't know what it was called. So I basically didn't learn anything.
I started with web dev like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and it wasn't actually that bad of a bad way to start programming. I mean, it probably would have been easier to just done like Python or something like that, but I don't know. Wait, can you run it really quick?
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
make sure it's all working as expected.
So this is the game we have so far. We've spent
It was
a couple
inspired
hours
by
on
what
it.
was that game? It was like Thomas was gone or something like that.
Thomas was alone, was an idea we had. It was just something we were copying, thinking of trying to make it so you can control multiple characters. But then we came up with this gravity idea that's kind of cool. This pad sort of increases your speed.
Don't touch the lava.
It
Well, I
has
mean,
a
do it for
touchdown.
demonstration, but
And then the lava just teleports you back. We haven't had time to actually code like a whole death thing,
but we really didn't want to do any complex like graphical design. At least I didn't. I'm not very good at that. We do the gravity. That's like the cool part. Whoa!
yeah,
Geometry dash.
no, gravity's reversed.
Nice.
We're gonna start in just a couple minutes. But we're definitely thinking of like making like some cool levels with it. I'm not very good at coming up with the cool things. I just know how to make things difficult, which I guess is a skill in itself.
One of my ideas was to try to make a level editor sort of that would take a picture that you could just draw in paint, and each pixel would correspond to like something in the level, and it would just generate the level using that picture.
So yeah, we're really just trying to use this because currently it's mostly just Ishan, Scout, and I, but we'd like to have some more people to help work on this. And so we kind of just wanted to promote that. And let's see the time. Yeah, we'll just wait 1 more minute and then we'll start. I'll start showing some like the basic web dev stuff with HTML, CSS, and JS. Could you let me share, Scout?
Yeah.
And,
I will shut down this.
Oh, there we go. Thanks. I think this was the right tab. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So just wait a fat minute right now and oh, there we go. Okay. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript are kind of the core parts to, I guess, web development. There are some other things, but just the very bare bones, these are the 3 parts. The HTML is where most of the visual elements are, whereas the JavaScript is like where most of the functionality is, and CSS is just pure styling. I'm not very strong on the CSS side because I don't really like to style or make UX and UI beautiful or anything like that, but I know how to like do stuff in it, which I'll kind of demonstrate with you. So I'm gonna be doing a demonstration for is like a basic. Do you guys remember the cookie clicker fad back in the day? Where like you click and you get like more points when you click or something like that?
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of just gonna emulate that, but add a couple other slightly cooler features. So with that out of the way, let me just kind of introduce some like the very basic stuff. So with HTML, we do these things called tags where you do like, for example, like let's just say we want to make like a text tag. This isn't actually real HTML, but let's just say you want to make like a text tag. You would first surround it with these less than and greater than signs. And you would also have another one with a slash in front of it. So you need both of these in order to actually create one tag. Like this is what you'd call a text tag. And if you want to like put actual text inside of it, you would actually need to like, I don't know, put like text in here, like text. Now this isn't real HTML. I'm just kind of using the tags as an example. You can have pretty much anything in a tag. Like it could be an input. It could be a, I don't know, maybe a link. Like these aren't real tags per se, but this is just kind of just trying to show how that works. There is a bit exception. Like I remember correctly, input actually you don't need this. I don't remember the reason for that one off the top of my head, but that's just kind of what Michael said. So tags are like comments. No, tags are actually the elements themselves. I'll get into that a little bit when we start actually building the website. So the first thing you actually need when you want to make an HTML page is you want to make an HTML tag. Let me just copy this. This is how you just make a bare bones website. Well, actually, that doesn't do anything. It just leaves it just blank like that. But there are some parts to the HTML that actually make a website work. If I remember correctly, the first thing you need is the head. The head, I really don't put anything in here besides like a reference to the style sheet, because if you want any of the styles to actually be in effect, you got to kind of, I don't want to say import, but you are sort of importing to kind of make like a reference to what other languages would do. So you can also put some other styling stuff like a title. You probably won't be able to see it on Replit, I don't think, but you know, like how it says here, like adequate bulky browser Replit. Well, with the title, it'll change it to something else. Like, oh, I wanted to say like website here. Like on an actual deployed web page, it would actually say website there. You can also put like an icon there too, but that's kind of just like more styling stuff that I don't really care too much about. Now, the important one to put is a link tag. A link tag essentially allows you to, actually, you don't need that second one, to basically reference to the style sheet, which is this right here, the CSS file. So we're just going to put in style.css. And do I have to put anything else? Oh, yeah, that's right. No, the rel was actually style sheet. And the href is just a link to something, is actually the style.css. So this is really all you're going to need the head for, unless you're doing other, like the icon, for instance, like right on this web page up here. But other than that, that's really all you're going to need to do with the head. The bulk of it is going to be done in the body. So you're going to need a body tag for that. And also, if you want to have some of the functionality, you are going to need a script tag inside of the body tag. Have a script here. And because we want to reference this specific script.js right here, we're going to have to reference that as well. I believe it was, let me just check. Oh yeah, it's source. Okay. Another thing to reference something with like a link is a source. You use it kind of just, some of them are source, some of them are href. Some of these names are kind of funky. I don't always remember what they are, but at the end of this, I'll definitely link this Replit in the chat so you can reference. Also, when you're trying to deal with syntax related things, W3 Schools is definitely a really good source that I use, especially when I just want to find some formal documentation on web stuff. So here we're just going to put script.js. So does the reason why you have to put like these actual reference to these files make sense to everyone? Or do I need to explain it a bit more? Okay, I think we're good. So now that we got some of the basic parts, I think we can start adding some, let me see in the chat. Yeah, it's kind of like importing a file. I mean, you don't do it like in Python or Java where you say like import this dot that or something like that. It's kind of the same thing. You're kind of just taking, well, this is a file I want to use for the script, or this is what I want to use for the style sheet. So that's kind of what that's all for. Yeah, okay. So now let's actually start doing some of the elements. So one of the text elements you can do is an H1 or a header one. So let's just put that tag in. So when we put something here, let's just put text and let's run it. This should, See, it just puts text, and you can change it like, I don't know, header. And it'll change it like that. There are some other tags that I believe you should know. I don't deal with the other H's, but there's H1, H2, H3. I don't remember if there's an H4 or not, but those are just the header tags. The common text you're going to be used is a paragraph tag. Like you put, this is a paragraph. And you run it, and that's what the paragraph looks like. There's a couple other elements that I'll be going over today, which I'll just put in right now. We got an input. Input's actually really useful. You can do a lot of different things with it. I think it was either type. Yeah, it was type. It's going to be equal to a. Let's just do, for example, let's just do for this one a checkbox, because you can't go wrong with a checkbox. I'll also put in a. It was you can do text or number. I don't remember if text. I know you can do number. Let's see if this compiles. Each of these tags have kind of like their own parameters, if you will, like because input, it'll take like a parameter of type, and you can customize the input to kind of be whatever you want. So this is a checkbox. It kind of does what you'd expect. You can check or uncheck. This one, I believe this was the text one, so you can put in text like hello world. This one you can type in a number like 1, or you could even do E because that's a number, or -1. There's also some other traits you can do, like you can set like a min, like I want the min to be, I don't know, 0, the max to be 10. And if you notice, let me just refresh this. Oh, there's also, you can do a starting value. I think it was value equals, let's just put in 1. So so just reading Michael's question, if you input a char in the number box, it doesn't let you, because the HTML, it's the input tag, when it has type number, it doesn't let you. It's kind of built in. Although if you really wanted to, like you could just use it as a generic, like a text input, and then you can kind of do a check on that yourself, although that would be a bit annoying to try to do. So I just use some of the built-in things you're given. Why did it not set the value to 1? Oh, there it is. It's 1. So like you can't go below 0, and you can't go above 10. So that's just kind of an example. Some of the things we'll be working with. There's also the button, which is really just a button. You can click on it, and if you want, you can have it do something. Like let's just put here submit, and boom, you have a submit button. So obviously, all of these are just elements. They don't actually do anything, because this is just the pure HTML side. So what we're going to be talking about is how we can actually customize given just the HTML elements. So I'd like to go into the style first, because it's a lot easier to cover. There's really not too much. I'm not much of a styling person. I'm not great with UI UX, so I kind of just do the bare bones with that. But the couple of things I would just briefly mention here is that if you want to customize a style for something, there's 3 main ways you can do it. One, you can just reference a type of tag. Like let's say you want the body to have a certain trait. Like let's say the body, there's also certain like style parameters. Like if you want to change like the color of the text, you would just do color. So let's just, okay, I don't want to do white. There'll be nothing. Let's just do red. So everything in the body is going to have red text. Well, not the button, because the button is a bit different because it has text embedded within the button. But see, the text here turned red. You can also do, I don't remember a lot of these off the top of my head, but you could also do, let's just do other tags. Like one of the ones I do a lot because I'm lazy is if I want everything on the web page to be a certain way, I'll just do HTML. And you obviously surround it by these brackets when you want to customize it. So let's just have a background image. You could actually have a background image, yes. Let's just make it something cool, just to kind of show cool background images. Let's just do this one because this one looks cool. Not very high quality, but let's just take that. And we'll import the image in. Kind of messing up. There we go. So this is just me importing the image. Let's just call it background image. There we go. So we're gonna give the background image URL because it takes that, and we'll just put in background. Oh shoot, you got to put it within the parentheses. Background image.jpg. It's probably going to come out pretty bad. Yeah, it kind of does that thing. So what it's basically doing here is the image is a certain size. So once it takes up that amount, it'll add another one on the row and also on the columns. I believe what you can just do is just background cover. No, it was background size. And then you do cover. And it should only have one instance. There we go. Now the image doesn't repeat itself. And while we're at it, since you can't see the text, let's just say text color to be white. So that's just most of the styling we're going to cover for the most of this tutorial. If you really are interested in some of that styling part, I would definitely just go to W3 Schools. There's a lot of properties you can change. Like you could even actually change the position. Like if I wanted to move this header to be, I don't know, over here for some reason, you can do that. So there's a lot you can do. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm mostly focused on the more interactive web page side of things. So I'm not going to focus too much on the style. There are some things we're going to mess with in the style to make something cool. Like I guess one of the big ones we can do is this, what we're going to be talking about later is display. Like display, if you do display none, for instance, you're going to get nothing. It basically makes it all disappear. Like just to kind of show you, because that kind of just destroys everything. Let's just set the H1. Let's customize the style for that. Let's just say display none. Now there won't be any header. Now you'll notice it kind of resizes itself. When display is none, it kind of just shifts everything up. Really nice feature. So you don't have to manually move everything when one thing disappears. If you wanted to still maintain that, you could mess with positioning a bit, but again, we're not really going to mess with that too much. Now back to the basic tutorial with this JavaScript. This is where most of the site functionality is going to work. Now it's kind of like, you don't need to do an int main per se, but you got to make like a function if you want anything to work. So let's just make like a really basic function. Let's just say print message. This is the syntax for making a function in JavaScript. You say function, you put in the name, then you put in any parameters you want. You don't have to specify type. Like I could just put, I don't know, message. And I believe you don't have to specify if it returns anything or not. You can just say return message or something like that. So I wouldn't worry too much about like any of the really strongly typed stuff that you probably are learning in CISP 360, 400, or even in Java, to be honest. It's kind of like Python, but it does retain some of the Java traits. It's kind of a nice language to learn, I guess, because it's pretty easy. You don't have to deal with all that type stuff. So let's just, it also, if you want to print anything, you do console.log. It's always different in every single language. So let's just do print the message. Now, if we want to call this function, just do print message. And let's just put in a message here. Let's put in a string of hello world. Let's run this. What the? Oh, I mistyped. My bad. Message is not defined. Did we not use that? I think that was my, I think I have to put var message. Var, no. Now that I usually use specifically typed parameters. Let's see really quick. Function, script. Okay, let's see. Maybe this. I haven't done this in a bit, so I'm a bit rusty. Okay, I guess they changed it maybe on with this replit. Back when I was using it, you didn't have to specify it like this, but I guess with this one you have to. But yeah, that's just being able to use parameters. You don't really have to specify anything for the functions themselves, but that's just kind of giving you a brief rundown on some of the functions. You don't have to say, oh, call everything in this order in int main, although obviously it's still top to bottom. So if I wanted to print hello world first and then goodbye world, I'm not suggesting suicide or anything in this message, but yeah, that's just how you just do parameter and all the functions. So now we're kind of showing some of the connections between each of the parts. But there is something further that I think I should tell you about. In order to actually have the interactivity between the HTML and the JavaScript, what you need to do is you're going to have to kind of get like the reference of each of these specific HTML elements. So bear with me, the syntax is kind of funky, but also another thing to mention actually is if you want to declare a variable in JavaScript, you just say var. You just say var, like just say message. Actually, no, I don't want to. Let's just say message. Let's just say it to that hello world we showed before. And we'll just put that boy in here. And it'll run. It guesstimates the type for you. Like if I put in 1, it'll kind of figure out, oh, that's a number. Obviously, when you do this print, it's going to treat it like a string, but that's besides the point. Like I could do, let's console.log message plus 2, and it should print 3. See, no type errors. So it does a lot of that guessing for you, kind of like Python. So that's pretty nice. Anyways, back to what we were talking about. If you want to get a specific element from the HTML, element/tag, whatever, what you would do is first on the HTML side, you got to give it an ID. Let's just set this checkbox. Let's just call it check. IDs, you can kind of set it to whatever you want. I'm not great with variable names either. So on the script, what you do is var. I just usually call it the same thing as the ID, but you can kind of come up with your own variable names. You do document dot get element by ID, and then you put it in here, which would just be check. And I believe if you console.log it, it'll just kind of like print information on the actual variable. Let's see. Okay, never mind. That's not very useful. But basically, I am getting this element. Like, it actually lets you, if you want to relate it to C, it's like getting a reference variable. If you mess with this, if you mess with this element in the JavaScript, it'll reflect on to the HTML as well, which I'll kind of get into. So now I think let's just try to get into that clicker. I'll kind of remove these things for now because I'll get into some of the cool stuff you can do later. So let's just work on the simple part. Let's just do click me. And then we'll have let's just put in another paragraph tag. 0. So this is pretty much how our little cookie clicker. I don't want to actually get a cookie because, I mean, I could, but I'd just make it easier. I'll just use a button. So obviously when you click me, it doesn't do anything. We want it to increment the score by 1. Let's just call this. So in order to do that, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to mess with each of these aspects. So what we should do is, since we want, when you click the button, it's going to do something in the JavaScript. As a result, it's going to need an ID. So that way we can do the document.get element by ID in this button. So let's just call it, not great with variable names, if you can tell. And since we're also going to change the score whenever you click on the button, we're going to need to give this one an ID too. Let's just call it score. So we're going to make a variable. We're just going to do the same name, click button. And like I said before, we're going to reference the document, which is the HTML. We're going to get an element by the ID, and it's just going to be click button. So, actually, no, I can't show that part yet because clicking doesn't do anything. I was just going to show, you can actually automate clicking in case you ever want to like write like a JavaScript bot or something. Like some of the things you can I'll show you guys later once we get this working. You can do, once you get the actual button through this method, if you do .click, you can actually do like an auto clicker. I've never really used it for anything serious, but it's just something cool that I've done before in like these fun web apps. Anyways, let's also get, let's see. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I remember when I made like one of these cookie clicker simulations back in the day, I just made an auto clicker and made it click like every, I don't know, like 100 milliseconds. That way the numbers would just shoot up really quick. What did we call this again? Score. So we're going to get that element by ID score. And let's set the variable to score. So just to show you guys that you can actually do stuff with this element, score, let's get with the text in it. Now, since it's a paragraph tag, if you want to get the text, it's .inner HTML. Oh, wait, not that, inner HTML. So if you console this, it should just print score 0. See? Now, what the fun thing is, you can actually change that. Let's just say, to kind of show that's kind of like a reference variable. Let's just set its inner HTML, I don't know, to score 1. As you can see, I have changed the score. Now, we're not going to use it that method because if we made everything a string, that wouldn't be the best way to do it. But just to kind of show you a little bit what we're going to be doing, we're going to make a score value. We're going to set to initialize it to 0. Now, what if we set score value and sorry, with string concatenation, you would do it like this. Score value. Wait, whoops. So first of all, the string is going to have a score with the string here, and we're going to append the score value here. So when we run this, it'll just be score 0. Now, what if we set this to 999? It's going to print score 999. So we're going to use a method kind of like this to do like the cookie clicker stuff. You need like the variable in JavaScript in order to actually increment it. So now let me show you how to actually handle the interactivity for that. So when you click on something, it's called an event. And if we want, but when an event happens, we want to do something because that event happened. We want to listen for that event, I guess is the best way to put it. Because the way you do it is you say, sorry, click button. We're going to get the element from HTML, this thing called click button. We're going to add an event listener, which means it's going to listen for an event that happens. There's a lot of different events you could have. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head. Again, I'm not great at remembering a lot of things, but one of the easy ones to remember is there's one called click. This is probably the most common one you can use. There's like on drag or on let go or something like that. A lot of programming with especially front end stuff has the type of things, but for the purpose of this, we're just going to use click. Now, what happens if you happen to click on it? Well, we're going to run a function. Let's call the function increment score. And we're just going to run increment score. So you don't actually have to put in the parentheses here because we're kind of referencing it like a variable-ish. I don't remember the exact reason why you do it like that, but that's kind of how the language works. So just to kind of show you that this does work, we're going to console.log. Let's just put in hello world. Great message to put. We'll keep the score value. We're not going to use it yet. I'm just kind of again, trying to just ease things in, just show. When we click this button right here that says click me, it's going to print hello world because it's going to call increment score. And obviously you can click it as many times as you want. Nothing's going to change. It's just going to be hello world. You want to get some of that functionality in. So when you click on it, we're going to increment the score value with this notation I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with from CISP 360. So when we run this and we click on this, it should increment our score here, right? Well, it doesn't because we have to mess with the HTML too. Like, to just show you, it is incrementing. So if we print out the score value each time we click on the button, it is incrementing, but since it's not reflecting here, we have to actually change the score element HTML. See, we have this score element right here. We have to actually change that. So that's what we're going to be doing. So we're just going to do score.inner HTML. Oh, whoops, misspelled that. Whoops. Inner HTML. I don't know. I keep misspelling that. We're just going to equal to, if you remember, we wanted to say score and then colon, then the score value. So we're going to just append the score value to this. So now I believe this should just work now. Yeah, now I got a basic cookie clicker. So that's just some of the basic of doing web development. We haven't, but I'm also going to show you some of the more cool stuff you can do with it. Like some of the more, I don't know, something that you can kind of show as like a parlor trick, but we're eventually going to try to do like a project together. This is just some really basic web development training, and this is recorded, so you can always come back here. I'll give you guys the code as well. So now let's get into that. So what I think would be cool is if you can change how much you can increment by. So we're going to go inside our HTML again. Let's make ourselves a little cool I don't know, control panel. Let's put in a header 3. And we're just going to call it control. Another thing I'd like to introduce you guys in HTML is a div or divider. It's basically just a container. I generally like to put things similar that are really similar inside of there. What a lot of people like to do that's very common actually is if you want a certain div or container to have similar styles, then you would just set this div right here to be a certain style. Actually, let me just do a quick demonstration of that. Also get into classes a bit, not the object-oriented classes, the styling classes. That part's probably a bit confusing in terms of like the naming, but that's just how they call it. Like, let's make these two different divs that kind of have the same thing. So if you want to do something for styling, you can give something a class. Like I know we had IDs for elements, but you can also have a class. You can put anything, but there are some things that won't work. Like if I put in this tag right here, like there are certain tags you can do. Like if I put this, actually it might work, but I don't think it will. It might just do nothing, but I don't think it would work. Okay, so you can technically put anything. I thought it would give like an error, but only if you put in certain keywords in there like div or h3 will you actually get a real element. I mean, you could technically still do stuff with this, but it's pretty useless. So anyways, we have these 3 control panels. We're going to give them a class. Classes are purely for styling. Like, hey, it's like, you know, in those RPG games, how there's like classes like, oh, this is the warrior class. This is the wizard class. All warriors are going to have certain traits. Like, I don't know, they have a sword. They have like, I don't know, armor. Whereas the wizards, they have like the robes, the long beard, and a staff, I think. Sorry, I'm not very well-versed in that type of thing. But if you can give multiple elements classes, like I can have a bunch of elements and they all have the class warrior. They're all going to look like warriors. And if I give a bunch of other elements of class wizard, they're all going to look like a wizard. IDs are different, where only an ID is unique. Only one element can have an ID. So let's just call this class, I don't know. Let's call it control panel 1. Let's call this other class, I don't know, control panel 2. So another thing to go back in the styles, if you want to change the style of a specific element by ID, you do a hashtag and whatever the ID is. Like click button. I'll mess with the style a little bit. Let's put color blue. I know that's a bad idea. It's already kind of, what's like green? That's a good color. And let's also do with the classes. The control. If you want to do reference, if you want to change the style of a class, you would do dot. So it would be dot panel 1. Let's also do that for control panel 2. I don't know. Let's just make this color. Actually, let's just do background color. That's easier to make it stand out. Background color black. That stands out. Now let's make the other one yellow. I don't know. So once we make these changes, it's going to look pretty wacky. Oh god, you can't even see that. So what you'll notice is we wanted to change the style of this element here called click button, which happens to be this button right here. You'll notice it changed to green color, the text. So you can change the style by ID. And for the classes, control panel 1, it has that class and it has the styling of background color black. Now this other one here, it has a class control panel 2 and its background color becomes yellow. So that's just another neat trick with styling. You could always just do it by tag. Like if I wanted to change every H1, like I said before, to a certain thing, you can do that. A lot of neat things you can do with styling. Anyways, so you could also, actually another thing just to show you, just to kind of prove a point here, let's also add one of these paragraph tags within this and just say, I don't know, hello world. We'll put in another paragraph tag here. Let's put in a button just to kind of spice things up. We'll just put it, oh, whoops, I accidentally deleted this. Hello. So now all these are going to have the same traits. As you notice, the div is a container. Everything in this container is going to have the same trait. So can the H3 and the paragraph tags, they all have the black background. The button and the control panel H3, because they're in the class control panel 2, they all have the same styles. So very useful to do if you want a bunch of things in a container to have the same styles. So let me just delete these again, not really needed. Some people are like really good at styling. I'm not the greatest. I'm okay. So now in our control panel, remember, we want to like change, you know what, let me just refresh this. We want to have an input that can say how much your score will increment by. So let's put in the control panel here. Actually, no, I don't want to put that inside the div. I don't need a class either. So this is our little control panel here. Let's put in our, oh shoot, okay, an input. We're going to make it a type number. Just to keep things easy, let's just say, I'll just put here the amount we increment. Okay, this isn't very great. It's kind of hard to see, but that does say the amount we increment by. And just to kind of make things nice, let's have a value initialized to 1. So it should start with a 1 here. And you can obviously make it go up, you can make it go down. So now what we want to do is, because we're going to use this information for something, we should give it an ID. So because we're going to mess with it on the JavaScript. The rule of thumb here is if you're going to use an element from the HTML in the JavaScript one way or another, give it an ID. And make sure it's unique. Don't have the same ID over and over again. That's going to cause a lot of problems. Let's just call this increment. Yeah, I'll just call it that. I don't actually know. We already have a class called increment. Let's just call it increment num. Yeah. So now on the JavaScript side, we obviously need to get that element by ID. Let's just call it, what did I call it again? Was it increment num? Yeah. So now what you'll notice is we also need to have an event. We need to call a function when we actually, there's a couple things you could do, but I'll kind of hint into that. First of all, we're going to need a variable what our little multiplier is, or not multiplier, like what we increment by. Increment val equals just 1. So what we're going to change here is, instead of just incrementing by 1 all the time, we're going to increment it by increment val. We might change this. Like, let's just kind of show an example. Right now, it increments by 1. But if we change this to 66, we're going to increment in terms of 66. But we want to change it depending on what's in here. So what we're going to do is, we already have this increment num, but what event are we going to be using this time? There's a really handy one called input. What it does is, every time you change an input, it's going to call a function. Let's just call this function change increment val. I'll put that here. Initialize this back to 1. And let's just say we're going to do, oh yeah, that's right, increment val. We're just going to be saying that equal to basically whatever's in here. So we have, oh, my bad, I accidentally hit click button here. This one's supposed to be num. So basically we want to get the value in here. So increment num, you can get the value by doing dot value. So let's do just a quick test of this again. Yep, we're incrementing. Now let's do 2. Yes, that is another issue I think we're gonna have to deal with. It's just adding to the inner HTML. Let's take a look and see why it's being a bit funky. Let's see, we're changing the increment val plus equals and increment val. Oh, it must be seeing it as a string is why. Do a good old parse int, and it should fix it, I think. There we go. Yeah, so one of the problems is with a lot of these inputs, even though it's of type number, it automatically just defaults to a string. So always make sure to check your types. It kind of lets you use types, like you can, it's not strongly typed the way Java is, so always be careful about that. So this, you can kind of just muck this up however you want. Like I want to increment 999. Well, that's what I'm gonna do. Really high score. So what else is there? We got our increment val. So now let me show you how to do something pretty cool. I'll show you how to make all these things just disappear by the click of a button or a checkbox in this instance. Let's just put right below clicker. Let's put in an input, and we're going to use type checkbox. Oops, type that in wrong. And we're going to give it, because we're going to have to mess with this on the JavaScript side. We're going to give it, actually, just to make things a bit easier to read. Type checkbox, and it's going to be an ID. I don't know, check. Not great with names. Did I use check? Okay. So what we're going to be working on is, let's not make the function yet. Let's actually just kind of get the value from here. Let's put it at the top just to be consistent with our ordering. So we're going to have this variable called check. We're going to get the element by ID. It's going to be check. And what we're going to be doing with that is we're going to add another event listener. We're going to listen for a certain event. This specific event, I think you can do it click to, but I like to do change. Whenever it changes, we're going to do something. When it changes, we're going to do, what do I call this? It's basically going to hide or show the control panel. Let's say, change display, let's just say display panel. I'll just also show you this. Let's just show you the checkbox. Obviously, it's going to complain about that because I haven't defined it. We have our little checkbox here. So obviously, we have to make the change display panel function. Oh, sorry, just also, is this kind of stuff making sense to everyone, or is there anything you want me to go back to? I'd be happy to answer any questions. You can just speak up or type in the chat. I'll wait a little bit. And if you don't have any questions, just say like no in the chat or something like that, just to make it easier. Okay, I got a confirmation from Vishwak and Will. Okay, if you guys have any questions, just type it in the chat. I can see a notification when there's a problem, so that's just kind of showing that. So let's just do a change increment variable. We're just going to define the function. Now, what is it actually going to do? Well, this is where some of the conditional logic is going to come from. We want to know, well, if it's not checked, don't show, but if it is checked, we want to show. So let's get what that value is. It's let's just call it is checked. My typing skills are really bad today. It's going to be, oh, whoopsie, I always forget to do this. This should just be check. Check dot. I think it was checked. I think, let me just verify this really quick. I forget a lot of the variables a lot. Please check. If this returns a Boolean, then we're on track. Change display panel. Oh, I copied the wrong thing. True, false. Okay, yeah, that's the right variable. I wasn't sure if it was checked or check. So let me just always print this so we can do good testing. So if is checked true after we click it, then we're going to want to show the display panel. If not, oh shoot. If not, we're going to want to hide the display panel. Now, this is where the styling and the style and the JavaScript kind of come together. If we want to hide something, which is this display panel right here, or control panel, whatever, let's give this an ID of control panel, because we're going to mess with this. We're going to want to mess with its style. I guess let's set it to default to just be unchecked. So let's just do, remember, like I said, we're going to use a hashtag to get its ID, control panel, because that's the ID. Display none. This basically just means it won't show up. Gone. It says control panel, but there's no actual control panel. When you click on this, obviously it doesn't show it yet, but that's what we're going to be working on. And we're going to need to get it var control panel equals document get element by element by ID. We're going to get control panel. This gives us access. Well, this gives us access to the elements within the control panel. Now, if you remember what I said earlier, this is within a div or a container. So we can control everything inside of here. We can even get the children of it. Basically means I get this specific thing or this specific thing. But right now we just want the style to affect everything in the container. We could even add more things and they would all stay hidden because you'll notice you don't see the paragraph and you don't see the input either. So that's what we're going to be changing. So do we have it right here? Control panel. Okay, and now we also have to add an event. Well, actually, no, we already added the event. Never mind. So one of the interesting things you can do is you can actually directly change the style through JavaScript. Like, let's get let's get control panel, and you do dot style. Now you can change any style you want. Like, let's just do the correct thing first. And I'll show you can literally prove that you can literally mess with anything in the style. We're gonna do dot display, like I said, equal to block. Block basically just means standard. You can see it, normal. None means it just disappears. It's equal to none. So I still kept the print statements and we hit this. It's true. It is checked. So we're going to show this. But when we uncheck it, it's false. It disappears. So that's kind of showing how you can work with both the HTML, JavaScript, and the CSS all at once. It's good to be able to have the kind of integration in between because otherwise it'd be very hard to do web programming otherwise. So another thing interesting worth noting is since you're only technically changing its display to none or making it not visible, it kind of saves the information you had here. Like, let's say we wanted to increment by whatever this number is. It disappears. We add it back, same number as before. Just kind of a little neat thing that I guess I noticed. We don't need this console.log anymore. What else can we do that's pretty cool? Let's also actually change our score value. We're basically just going to set our score value to whatever we want in this control panel. It's kind of like a little admin panel, I guess you could say. What did we show here? The amount we increment by. Okay, let's also add another thing in here, just a quick paragraph. Let's just call it, I don't know, set score. And we'll add another input of type number. We're going to directly set the score. ID, let's call it change. No, I'm going to, what do I want to call it? Let's just call it set score. I don't really know. I'm not great at this. Let's set its value to initial value to 0. Now, just to show you, it's here. Well, actually, we have to actually increment this. I'm not increment this, add this first. So as you can see, the set score is here, but obviously, like I said, it doesn't do anything. Like I want this score to be, well, actually, what I'm going to do is just to make it nice. The minute you change this, it'll automatically set the score to whatever you want. And also the color scheme is kind of annoying me. So let's just go into the style. We're going to add a background color to each element. So that way everything's easy to see. Black. Perfect contrast. Oh boy. I don't know why that didn't show up. Oh, I know why. Okay, let's not do it that way. Let's do just the body. We'll have background color. Then we'll set it to black. Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of the background, but I mean, that's not too important. So now you can just see everything. We can see the control panel, nice and easy. So now what we're going to do is, did I already give the ID? Yes, set score. Now we're going to also get that ID set score. Check. Did we already get the multiplayer one? Control panel score, increment num. What did I call this one again? Increment num. Yeah, that's what it was. So let's just add a set score. Document.get element by ID, and then we're going to get that set score element, and we're going to add an event listener. This one is, we're going to be using the same input one. Basically, anytime you make an input, it's going to change the variable. Just to also show you that, let's just change this real quick to set score change, and we'll just make it change. Gotta make a function for that. Copy this because it's easier. change score. Now, just to kind of show you how that works with the input event, let's just console.log whatever is in change score. So change score.now. This shouldn't give an error unless I did. Okay, let's enable the control panel. So there we. Oh yeah, that's right. Let's see. Let's just change it to 5. Undefined. Okay, let's just try to debug that error really quick. Change score did. Oh, I see the problem. We said change score. Funny. I'm pretty bad with my variable names. Okay. Whoopsie, wrong button. So as you can see, we can like 999. Anytime you change it, like you just type in one key or delete a key or delete a number with a key, it'll pretty much call this function change score. So every time we type something in here, what we're going to want to do is we want score val to be equal to that new value. Now, I believe it's going to be a string, so we want to convert it to a number first. So score.value. Now, again, this isn't going to actually do anything because it's going to do it, but it's not going to change the HTML. I could change this to 999. It's not changing there. So like we did before here, we're going to get the score, which is this value, this element right here. In our HTML, we're going to set equal to the updated score value. So let's change it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is actually a real change because when we add it by 1, see, it wasn't just a change on the HTML like you do on the inspect element. It actually changes the internal variables. I could change this to 999. Look at this. We're making real money over here. So that kind of shows that. So is there any questions on anything else so far that we've done? Like, let's just also change this for show 100 and increments by 100. Any other questions about what we've done so far? This is just kind of really generic, basic JavaScript and HTML and CSS. Any other questions so far? Because I kind of went a bit fast because I was showing how it all worked together. I don't think we have any questions. Okay, so this part is just kind of for fun. One of the things you can do is let's kind of do an auto clicker where basically it'll automatically just click it for you. Let's make just a quick button for that. Let's just put it underneath here. Button tag. Let's give it an ID of let's just call it click. So again, we're going to have to get that variable by its ID. Button. So this part is another one of the fun stuff. It is going to be a bit weird how you do, but basically we're going to set a timer, and after every X amount of time, we are going to click the button. So let me just show you how to do one single auto click. So when you click this button, let's say auto click button, add event listener, click. And we're going to auto click. So one of the things you can do that's also kind of cool that I do for this, because if you click an auto clicker button and assuming it'll keep clicking for you, it'll keep doing it over. It'll add a bunch of different clickers. So let's just say you only want it to do one set of auto clickers. Like for instance, you know how I'm just kind of clicking this one at a time. If you click on the auto clicker button multiple times, you'll have multiple kind of like me clicking this, and it'll increment it like a lot faster, but I don't want to do that. So another cool thing you can actually do is, let me just add this auto click function. What you can do is you see this button right here, auto click button dot, I think you just do disabled. I don't remember the exact syntax. I think this will do it, but let's just try it. Yeah, so you see how it's disabled? I can't click on it anymore. So to only let one timer do the one that actually does the auto clicking. You can always re-enable it too. So that's just another cool feature. So we're going to let's just kind of just do one auto click, just one. Let's just do What was the click button called? Click button. Click button. We're gonna do dot click. Well, this will actually click it for us. Now, just to kind of show you that it's not acting the exact same way as this one, what you can do is, this is how you make a for loop, by the way. For var I equals 0, I is less than whatever, I plus. It's kind of the same thing, except for instead of int, you do var. And it should automatically generate us a bunch of clicks. So it kind of went really fast, but what I can do is I can make it click after every X amount of time. So I don't remember the syntax off the top of my head, but it was something called set timeout. So while true, this is going to run for eternity. We're going to set timeout. Let me just quickly look up the syntax for that. Set timeout JS. I forget if you put the function first or the time first. Let me see. I'll show you how I kind of go through documentation here. So you go to this, set timeout. So you put in the function and it'll do something for, this is in milliseconds, by the way. So let's do kind of like that generic function. I think that makes things easier. I'm gonna set a timeout. We're gonna use this blank function. We're just going to do this dot click. Let's do that every second. I think that sounds good. We're also going to disable that too, so that way we don't have multiple these timeouts, although you could. It's going to be pretty ugly. I think this should do it, but let's just run it and see what it does. Oh no. I think the website's hosed now. Okay, so I think the problem, let me just take a quick look. I didn't think that would cause a problem. I guess it just doesn't like the infinite loop. I did it before on something else and it seemed to work fine. Let's run this. Okay, then we're back to normal. Let's just end this for a longer time. I don't think that's the problem, but let's just do a console.log just to be sure. This is what I like to do called sanity checks, just to make sure things are all fine and dandy. Test. Put one in here to see how fast it's actually clicking. Oh, I see the problem. It's setting a timeout constantly. Oh, I see. Okay, then that's not bad, I guess. We probably should have put the while loop inside of there. My bad. I'm actually creating like an infinite number of timeouts, which isn't good. So let's just open this function up. This while true. Wait, no, it's going to call that every time. There was a certain way to do this without it causing serious problems. If I do while true, that's going to cause a billion problems. Let me look that up. I think I did this on something before. Yeah, I'm a bit rusty with some of these things. So like, I remember you had to do a loop, but I don't want to cause an infinite loop because then it kind of implodes on itself, which I'm sure a lot of you guys definitely have done before. Not very fun. Let's see. I don't remember working on this. We said it every. Darn, I can't remember off the top of my head how this one went. But yeah, that's kind of how you would do an auto click. I'm trying to remember how the timeout system works. It was like an auto clicker. Oh, I think it was just this. Yeah, a lot of times you can kind of just look things on the internet to find things. Let's just run this. Did it make all that go away? Let's keep this, the disabled. I don't want people to do this multiple times. This is more of a React thing. Oh, that's right. Just calling called a bunch of times. Just do 1,000. Oh wait, shoot, wrong button. That only seems to call it one time. Implement something. God, I can't remember how to do that. I'll definitely have to look that up again because I do gotta go soon. But just to kind of show again, let's just do. I'll just show you how to do like the normal for loop way again. I haven't really messed with timeouts that much, so in a really long time. So I kind of forgot the syntax, but basically there was a way you could kind of click on it and it would every 1 second it would increment it by 1, or just click on this button basically. So let's just do 100. And we're just going to store.click. What's a complaint? Oh, my bad. I plus. Store.click. Why did I hit the wrong button? Auto click button. It'll call auto click. Let's just check this problem really quickly. That's kind of funky. No, it was let's just do just one click again. And okay, yeah, it seems like it's acting up a bit. But yeah, that's kind of just like the web development in a nutshell. I'm trying to pick it back up again. So what I'm thinking that we can do is it would really help for your resume, for instance, but also just give great experience. I'm thinking we can work on like a website that can handle like API calls and maybe work on like an AWS or database or something like that, just to kind of use some of the current technologies and whatnot. And would any of you guys be interested in working on like a big project together or that type of thing? You can like speak up or just put it in the chat. You can type in no if you're not interested.
I think like a big project would definitely be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it'd be nice to like, especially with how competitive internships are nowadays, I think it'd be cool if we can like work on something together. We can just say, hey, look, I'm very skilled in like full stack web development, that type of thing. I know Ishan already does that on like his job, which is pretty cool, but I kind of, like I said, I kind of want to pick up web development again. So I think we can definitely kind of like work as like a team to do that. And if any of you guys are interested, I'm gonna make we're probably gonna work on like future. I'm just kind of trying to get everyone just acquainted with some of the basic JavaScript and HTML, CSS, and then we'll kind of learn together with some of the more complicated stuff like the API calls or working with like a database or something like that. We can just, it doesn't really have to be anything important. Like we could make like a to-do list or something like that. I think Ishan mentioned something like that. So that's the kind of project we're thinking of doing. It'll really boost all of our resumes, help us get that first internship. So anyways, that's all I wanted to say. It was really fun seeing you all, and I think we might have another session just to make sure everyone's kind of up to date. We'll work on a bit more of a complicated project with web development, and yeah, I'll post the recording and I'll post my code, and I hope to see all of you guys next Saturday for our normal meeting. Any other questions or anything else that you have before we go? Thanks. No problem.
I think in the chat, someone also mentioned a data science related project. Are you gonna possibly address that at the meeting?
Yeah, I'm gonna address that at the meeting. I could address it now, but it would be cool also because I want to really have different projects we're all working on at once, to have like a data science team where we can like work on different things there, because we're really just a club of all like computer science, software engineering, tool type enthusiasts. And I think it'd be really cool if we can work on projects together. If someone wants to spearhead that, they can, because I'm not as experienced with that. And I also am kind of have a lot of things going on at the moment. But yeah, I definitely would like for us to all have different teams. Right now I have Unity trying to build up the web dev team. I definitely am looking for some of that data science experience personally. But yeah, I'll definitely address that at the meeting. But for now, yeah, we're definitely going to try to do that. So anything else anyone wants to mention before we close out this training? Okay, I take it we don't have any other questions, comments, concerns. Well, it was great seeing you all, and it was really fun getting to do some web development programming with you all, and I hope to see you guys soon. See ya.
Thank you. All right. Bye.